Commando was famous for its outrageous, bloody action scenes, and an Arnold who never ran out of bullets. But in real life, the actors who helped shape this legendary film did not get a happy ending. Some passed away due to unexpected accidents, some sank into addiction and despair, and others were forgotten by Hollywood until their final breath. And when you explore this tragic list with us, you will never look at Commando the same way again. Let's begin. James Olsen as Major General Franklin Kirby. James Olsen was born on October 8, 1930, in Evanston, Illinois. When he appeared in the film Commando in 1985, he was 55 years old and took on the role of Major General Franklin Kirby, a former military commander and old friend of John Matrix. Kirby was the first to warn about the assassination of former unit members and helped trigger the chain of events to rescue Matrix's daughter. Although he only appeared in a few scenes, Olsen portrayed an aura of authority, integrity, and reassurance, just like his own life. Olsen began his career on the Chicago stage after completing military service, a difficult path in the 1950s. He gradually gained recognition through a series of supporting roles, peaking with Rachel, 1968, a film nominated for an Oscar. However, Olsen's career never truly exploded. Part of it was due to his refusal of sensational roles, and part due to his deep attachment to theater. Financial pressure once made him consider quitting acting, especially after a quiet divorce in the 1960s. With no children and never remarrying, Olsen chose a private life, and loneliness followed him for most of his years. In old age, Olsen lived in seclusion in Malibu. He battled cancer during the last years of his life, a fight he endured silently without ever disclosing it to the public. He withdrew from the screen after 1990 and declined all interview requests. James Olsen passed away on April 17, 2022, at the age of 91, at his seaside home in California, leaving behind 3 nephews and a trove of roles spanning more than 3 decades. His net worth at the time of his death was estimated at around $5 million, mostly from long-term television contracts, supporting film roles, and earnings from Broadway theater. Michael Adams as Harris. Michael Adams was born on March 22, 1950, in New Mexico, USA. At 35 years old, he took part in the action film Commando, 1985, playing Harris, a nameless henchman in Arias's organization who appears briefly at the end of the film when John Matrix single-handedly storms the enemy base. Though the role was minor and had no dialogue, behind the intense action scenes lay the mark of a quiet man who always risked his life behind the camera, a stunt performer who lived on the edge between glory and tragedy. Adams didn't enter Hollywood through traditional means. Growing up on a harsh cattle ranch, he once competed professionally in rodeos before switching to stunt work, where he became known as the Fearless One. Roof jumps, self-performed explosion scenes. These left him with many injuries that no one ever knew about. The chronic pain and strain led to a growing dependence on painkillers, something he always kept secret, even from his closest colleagues. He worked on films like No Way Out, 1987, and In the Line of Fire, 1993, yet no one remembered his name on screen. Working day and night, often without adequate insurance, Adams earned meager wages just to continue his solitary life. It's said that he once had a short-lived marriage, but divorced soon after due to insomnia, chronic back pain, and irritable moods from long-term injury trauma. Though he became president of the Stunt Performers Association and served as a technical advisor for Days of Our Lives, he still lived quietly in a rundown rented apartment in California, with a rusted truck and a stack of undisclosed medical records. On April 18, 2010, Michael Adams suddenly passed away at the age of 60 after a stroke in Newhall, California. His net worth was only about $500,000, mostly savings from over 30 years of dangerous stunt contracts. Adams departed the world the same way he lived, quietly, full of sacrifice, and forgotten by the world until it was too late. Bill Paxton, as intercept officer. William Paxton was born on May 17, 1955 in Fort Worth, Texas. In 1985, when he was 30 years old, he appeared in the film Commando as the intercept officer, a surveillance officer monitoring aerial activities. Though it was only a brief supporting role, Paxton's appearance added realism and urgency, helping to speed up the pace of John Matrix's rescue mission. At the time, he was quietly making a name for himself in Hollywood through small but distinctive performances. In his youth, Paxton was not handed opportunities easily. Rejected by film schools, he once worked as a parking lot attendant and janitor before moving on to become a set designer to make a living. Amid hardship, he nurtured a dream of becoming an actor, and eventually broke through with Aliens, 1986, as Hudson. However, the rise to fame also brought stress. Paxton was a perfectionist to the extreme and once clashed with directors over his insistence that scenes convey real emotion. He threw himself into work without rest, participating in blockbusters like Twister, 1996, Apollo 13, 1995, and Titanic, 1997. Sometimes at the cost of his health and the growing distance from his family. Paxton married Louise Newberry in 1987 and had 2 children, but admitted in an interview that his obsession with success often caused him to miss important moments with his wife and children. In 2017, what seemed like an ordinary heart pain forced him into surgery to replace an aortic valve, a complication stemming from rheumatic fever he had as a child. Unfortunately, after the first surgery, his condition worsened. A second emergency operation was performed, but it could not save him. William Paxton passed away on February 25, 2017, at the age of 61 due to a stroke following surgery. He was cremated and laid to rest at Forest Lawn Cemetery, Hollywood Hills. At the time of his passing, the post-surgical legal battle lasted several years, ending with an undisclosed settlement. At the time of his death, Paxton's net worth was estimated at around $40 million, a worthy figure for over 4 decades of tireless artistic dedication. Matt Landers as Fred. Matt Landers, full name Matthew Maurice Landers, was born on October 21, 1952 in Utica, New York. At 33 years old, he appeared in the action blockbuster Commando, 1985, playing Fred, a mall security guard who appeared briefly while attempting to stop John Matrix, but was quickly taken down. Though the role was minor and without dialogue, Landers left an impression on audiences with his weary face and anxious expression. Matt Landers began his artistic journey in summer theater in 1969 and was once a promising young star on Broadway, performing in productions like Grease and Working, and even receiving a Drama Desk nomination. But Hollywood did not open its doors to him. Over more than 3 decades, he was only cast in supporting roles: police officers, soldiers, security staff, background characters in major films like 48 Hours, 1982, Die Hard, 1988, and Down Periscope, 1996. For Landers, the spotlight never truly reached his heart. The pressure of being unrecognized tormented him and led him to question his self-worth, especially when compared to his more famous co-stars. Nonetheless, in his personal life, he tried to build a peaceful home with his wife, actress Murphy Cross, and their 2 daughters, Lily and Fiona. But life was never easy. Sparse roles and unstable income forced him to take on many side jobs to cover expenses and support his children's education. The final years of his life were overshadowed by darkness when he was diagnosed with cancer. He continued accepting film roles, even as his health seriously declined. Matt Landers passed away on March 12, 2015 in Los Angeles at the age of 62. His death was barely mentioned in the media, noted only by a few brief lines. He left behind an estimated net worth of about $1 million, a modest figure for a life of quiet sacrifice in the harsh entertainment industry. Nick Dmitri as Guerrilla Guarding Plane. Nick Dmitri, whose real name was Nicholas Dimitrios Sigalakis, was born on December 27, 1932, in the United States. When he appeared in the film Commando in 1985, he was 53 years old. In the film, he played the role of the guerrilla guarding plane, a mercenary guarding the aircraft, who appeared briefly in an early action scene, where he was swiftly defeated by John Matrix without a single line of dialogue. Although the role was fleeting, it was a typical example of a career spanning over 40 years as a dedicated and silent stuntman. Dmitri began his Hollywood career in the late 1950s after leaving the U.S. Navy, where he had served as a disciplined and resilient soldier. His sharp features, muscular build, and professional movement quickly made him one of the standout stunt performers during the golden era of American action films. But behind that iron appearance was a body gradually worn down by countless injuries. Broken ribs, wrist sprains, dislocated shoulders, and even head trauma from hundreds of fight scenes, high falls, and being dragged through the streets. Most notably, a fight scene with Charles Bronson in Hard Times, 1975, caused him serious back injuries. Around that same time, it was reported that directors had him die on screen up to 86 times in a single year. Despite having over 100 roles across film and television, Dmitri was never invited to receive a major award, nor did he ever walk the red carpet. In the final years of his career, he appeared in high-profile films such as The Terminator, 1984, Last Action Hero, 1993, and True Lies, 1994, often portraying villains who were quickly defeated or bodyguards taken down in an instant. As the injuries mounted, he still persisted in working, not only out of love for the craft, but also for financial reasons. Although he had married Christina Cummings, who became the emotional anchor of his life, he could not overcome a brief period of depression after being dropped from a major project due to his age. Nick Dmitri passed away on October 20, 2021, at the age of 88. The cause of death was never publicly disclosed, but many colleagues believed it was the cumulative toll of decades spent living with pain and professional injuries. At the time of his death, his estimated net worth was around $2 million, a modest sum compared to the dedication and sacrifices he gave almost entirely to the action film industry. Arnold Schwarzenegger as John Matrix. Arnold Schwarzenegger was born on July 30, 1947, in Austria. When he took on the role of John Matrix in Commando in 1985, he had just turned 38 years old and was at the peak of both his physical condition and his movie career. The character John Matrix is a lone former Special Forces operative, willing to tear apart an entire country to rescue his daughter from the hands of kidnappers. With bulging muscles, a cold gaze, and superhuman strength, Schwarzenegger turned Matrix into an immortal action icon of the 1980s. However, outside the camera's view, Arnold's life was never as invincible as his character. In the 1990s, after becoming a global superstar, he entered what seemed to be an ideal marriage with Maria Shriver, the niece of the late President John F. Kennedy. But after nearly 25 years together and 4 children, his family life collapsed completely when a shocking truth was revealed. Arnold had fathered a child with the family's housekeeper, a child he had kept secret for over a decade. That revelation not only shattered his home, but also tore apart the image of the model man he had worked so hard to build. The devastation didn't stop at a broken marriage. Arnold also had to struggle with aging, severe heart surgeries in 1997 and 2018, and the quiet loneliness that crept in after the spotlight faded. Though he always appeared strong, he once admitted that there were days when he woke up feeling completely empty, as fame could no longer soothe the deeply scarred heart of an aging man. Even though he returned to the screen with Terminator Dark Fate in 2019 and television projects like FUBAR 2023, he knew full well that his time had passed, and coming to terms with that truth was his hardest battle yet. As of 2025, Arnold Schwarzenegger is 78 years old. He currently lives in California and remains active in charity work, environmental efforts, and politics, often sharing his life philosophy through motivational videos. Though he stepped away from politics after serving as governor of California, 2003 to 2011, he remains a respected voice on climate change and healthy living. His estimated net worth is around $450 million, mainly from real estate, investments, and personal branding ventures. Vernon Wells as Bennett. Vernon Wells was born on December 31, 1945, in Australia. He played the role of Bennett in Commando in 1985 when he was 39 years old. In the film, Bennett is a former comrade of John Matrix, who has now become a villainous mercenary with a crazed look and a burning desire for revenge. Wells portrayed the character with a wild, intense energy that made the final showdown between Bennett and Matrix one of the most memorable action scenes of the 1980s. However, Vernon Wells's career did not continue to skyrocket as expected after Commando. He was often typecast as a villain and had to accept supporting roles in many B-movies. During the 1990s, Wells went through financial difficulties as several projects failed, forcing him to take on behind-the-scenes and voiceover work to make ends meet. Although he was never involved in any major scandals, there were rumors of conflicts with colleagues due to his blunt and distant personality. Behind the fierce roles was an actor quietly struggling with Hollywood's forgetfulness. In his personal life, Vernon Wells has kept a low profile and chosen to stay away from the glitz and glamour. He married a Japanese woman and built a peaceful life away from the spotlight. Contrary to his aggressive on-screen persona, he enjoys gardening, meeting fans at film conventions, and occasionally taking on small roles to keep his passion alive. However, tragedy struck. In early 2025, a devastating fire during the Palisades blaze destroyed his home in California, taking with it all the memorabilia from his career and a lifetime's worth of belongings. In 2025, Vernon Wells is 79 years old. He no longer acts regularly, spending his time with family and doing charity work. Though never a leading star, he is still respected by action fans for the unforgettable characters he brought to life. His net worth is estimated at around $3 million USD, a modest figure compared to his Hollywood co-stars, but one that truly reflects the long journey of a resilient artist who persevered through doubt, hardship, and even fire to stay faithful to his passion for acting until the very end. Don Chong as Cindy. Don Chong was born on February 28, 1961. She played Cindy in Commando in 1985 when she was just 24 years old. Her character, a flight attendant, went from being an accidental bystander to becoming a key ally of John Matrix, with a memorable moment where she fires a rocket launcher to save her friend, leaving a strong impression on audiences. In a testosterone-filled film, Ray's Cindy brought a refreshing layer, intelligent, bold, and emotionally resonant. However, behind that strong image lies a life filled with turbulence. Born into a complex artistic family, her father being comedian Tommy Chong, who struggled with substance abuse, Ray had to grow up amid instability and emotional voids. She once shared that her Chinese grandfather, out of racial shame, refused to pass on his culture to the next generations, leaving her with a sense of identity confusion. That cultural disconnection, combined with the pressure of being the child of a famous figure, caused Ray to constantly struggle with a feeling of alienation in the entertainment world. She went through 3 failed marriages, one of which, the 2014 divorce, left her with deep emotional wounds and financial strain. Ray also faced public backlash after making a controversial remark about Oprah Winfrey in 2014, a situation that forced her to issue a public apology. Although she was never involved in major scandals or self-destruction like some of her peers, Don Chong was often seen as indecisive and lacking focus in developing her career, causing her name to fade after her 1980s peak. She quietly shifted toward independent films and rarely appeared in mainstream media. In 2025, at 64 years old, Ray remains active in the industry, but mainly works behind the scenes and in small supporting roles. She spends most of her time living in California, raising her son Morgan, and participating in independent film activities. Although her career didn't explode as expected after Commando, she is still regarded as a pioneering woman of color in 1980s Hollywood. Her current net worth is estimated at around $4 million USD, a modest sum compared to her contemporaries, but one that is well earned through a journey of courage, loss, and persistence in surviving the harsh currents of the film industry. Alyssa Milano as Jenny Matrix. Alyssa Milano was born on December 19, 1972. She played Jenny Matrix in Commando, 1985, when she was just 12 years old, portraying the daughter of John Matrix, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Although a supporting role, Jenny was the emotional core of the film, the kidnapped child who became the driving force behind Matrix's violent rampage to rescue her. With innocence, fear, and quiet resilience in her eyes, Alyssa delivered a deeply human anchor in a world filled with guns and vengeance. But behind the stage lights, Alyssa Milano faced the harsh trade-offs of being a child star. She grew up in the temptation-filled world of Hollywood, frequently exploited for her image while still a young teen. In the 1990s, Alyssa struggled to transition into adult roles without being typecast by her little Jenny past. She once revealed that she endured repeated harassment and even suffered from mild depression out of fear and a lack of control over a career that was veering off course. Her married life was equally tumultuous. After a failed marriage to rock musician Sinjin Tate, she went through the pain of a miscarriage before marrying David Bugliari for the second time. They had 2 children, but Alyssa has admitted that her struggles with anxiety and obsessive-compulsive disorder made it hard for her to fully enjoy motherhood. In 2017, she became one of the pioneering voices of the #MeToo movement after bravely revealing that she had been a victim of sexual harassment, a disclosure that shocked the public. Today, Alyssa Milano is 52 years old. She remains active as a social advocate, writer, podcaster, and independent film producer, even though her film career no longer shines as brightly as it once did. She is one of the rare few who dared to speak out against the corruption of the very industry that once victimized her. Her net worth is estimated at around $10 million USD, a modest figure considering her golden childhood fame, but a true testament to survival, reinvention, and extraordinary resilience. Dan Hadaya as Arius. Dan Hadaya was born on July 24, 1940, in New York City. He played Arius in Commando, 1985, when he was 45 years old, a cunning former South American dictator who orchestrates the kidnapping of John Matrix's daughter in order to blackmail him into committing a political assassination. With his cold stare and arrogant demeanor, Dan Hadaya turned Arius into a detestable yet mesmerizing villain, launching a string of scheming supporting roles that became his career signature. However, being typecast as a villain brought ongoing stress to Dan Hadaya's life. He once admitted that people often assumed he was a real jerk in real life, which led him to limit public appearances. Off-screen, his only marriage ended quietly in the 1980s, and he never remarried or had children. In the early years of his career, he worked as a high school teacher to make ends meet before getting professional acting opportunities, having studied at HB Studio, where many legendary stars began. Though he never had the glamour of some of his peers, Hadaya left a deep impression through countless standout supporting roles, such as the cuckolded husband in Blood Simple, 1984, the powerful but lovable father in Clueless, 1995, and the satirical portrayal of President Nixon in Dick. He rarely attracted scandal, lived privately, and avoided the party scene, but once revealed that playing dark psychological characters required him to stay balanced through meditation and daily walks. In 2025, Dan Hadaya is 84 years old. He lives in New York, occasionally taking on small roles in television or independent theater, maintaining a simple lifestyle and staying off social media. With a career spanning more than 4 decades, his net worth is estimated at around $5 million USD. Not an overwhelming figure, but a clear testament to a lifetime of steady artistic work and a conscious decision to remain far from the chaos of fame. Bill Duke as Cook. Bill Duke was born on February 26, 1943, in Poughkeepsie, New York. In 1985, when he was 42 years old, he played Cook in Commando, a cold-blooded assassin working for Arius, who had betrayed John Matrix in the past. With his towering build, chilling gaze, and assassin-like demeanor, Bill Duke turned Cook into one of the most fearsome enemies Matrix had to confront. The one-on-one fight between the two in the motel room remains one of the most intense action scenes in the film. But behind that menacing face was a soul that had struggled with identity and prejudice. As a black actor over 6'3" tall, Duke was often typecast into tough, criminal, or mercenary roles, and he admitted multiple times that this deeply hurt him. In the early years of his career, Duke endured covert discrimination in Hollywood and was repeatedly rejected for roles simply because his appearance was considered too intimidating. In his memoir, he shared that being imprisoned in an image others imposed on him felt like being bound in darkness. Refusing to give in, Bill Duke turned to directing and producing, making his mark with films like Deep Cover, 1992, and A Rage in Harlem, 1991, where he gave opportunities to black actors overlooked by Hollywood. However, his personal life remained quiet. Never married and with no children, Duke lived alone and went through periods of depression and self-isolation for years after his mother, the only person who always believed in him, passed away. As of 2025, Bill Duke is 82 years old and still carries himself with dignity. He appeared in Black Lightning and Mandy in recent years. He currently lives in Los Angeles, focusing on writing books and running a charity organization that supports young black artists. His net worth is estimated to be around $3 million, not a massive sum, but one he calls the value of freedom, not fame. David Patrick Kelly as Sully. David Patrick Kelly was born on January 23, 1951, in Detroit, Michigan. He was 34 years old when he took on the role of Sully in the action film Commando, 1985. In the movie, Kelly played a cocky and sadistic henchman hunted down and thrown off a cliff by John Matrix, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Though a minor role, his sharp performance made Sully one of the most memorable villains of the 1980s. In contrast to his on-screen persona, Kelly's life was marked by quiet, and sometimes dark, chapters. In the early years of his career, he suffered a major blow when his brother was murdered in a case that was never fully resolved. That pain haunted him for life, deeply influencing the psychological depth and madness in many of his roles. After portraying Luther in The Warriors, 1979, with the chilling line, "Warriors, come out to play," he became the target of real-life hate from some viewers, leading to threats and harassment that left him emotionally shaken for a time. Marriage came late for Kelly. He wed artist Juliana Francis in 2005 when he was 54 years old, following a string of private failed relationships. Their first daughter was born in 2008, when Kelly was nearly 60, a moment that was both joyful and overwhelming, as he had to juggle the demands of stage acting with fatherhood. Nonetheless, he maintained a disciplined inner life, practicing meditation, holding a second-degree black belt in Saido karate, and playing instruments to keep mental balance amid emotional turmoil. In 2025, David Patrick Kelly is 74 years old. He occasionally appears on Broadway and in indie projects, remaining committed to art over fame. While he never achieved the wealth of some of his contemporaries, his net worth is estimated at about $2 million, largely earned from steady supporting roles and voice work. He currently lives with his family in New York, enjoying the late peace of a life devoted to a quiet but profoundly deep artistic journey. Michael Delano as Forrestal. Michael Delano was born on January 20, 1941, in New York. When he took part in the film Commando in 1985, he was 44 years old and played the role of Forrestal, a sports car salesman who unfortunately became a victim of Cook in a brief but intense scene. Although he only appeared for a few minutes, his character brought a touch of dark humor that contrasted with the tense atmosphere of the film, highlighting the ruthless coldness of the villains. Behind the handsome appearance and suave demeanor on screen was a life filled with inner conflict. In the late 1970s, Delano's career began to rise with roles like Sonny Capito in Firehouse and Johnny Venture in the series Rhoda. However, during that same period, his first marriage quietly fell apart. Those close to him recalled that his dedication to the craft had made him distant and cold, a price he never realized he was paying until he lost his family. The shock of divorce led him into a long, silent period of depression. He once said that the feeling of stepping into the dressing room after a shoot, then returning to an empty apartment, was colder than the New York wind in February. In 1985, when he appeared in Commando, Delano was in fact trying to revive his career after a string of forgettable television roles. Even though the role of Forrestal was minor, he gave it his all, because, in his words, "There are no small parts, only actors who lack conviction." Yet that effort didn't bring much change. By 2001, when he re-emerged as the slick casino manager Rick in Ocean's 11, he was over 60 years old, his hair already turning gray, and no longer pursuing leading roles. Behind the bright lights of Las Vegas was the quiet sadness of an actor who once dreamed of becoming a star, but was held back by fate and his own choices. As of 2025, Michael Delano is 84 years old and living peacefully in California. He never remarried, has no children, and no longer works regularly in the entertainment industry. Occasionally, he performs in small jazz clubs under his old stage name, Key Larson. His net worth is estimated at around $1 million, mostly from his role in Ocean's 11 and savings from his peak years. All of these names, even if they only appeared on screen for a few minutes, helped define the classic quality of Commando. But the price they paid in real life was sometimes painfully bitter. Did you ever notice them when watching the film, or only remember Arnold? And now that you know the behind-the-scenes stories, do you still see Commando as just another action movie? Share your thoughts with us and let us know. Which character haunts you the most after learning the truth?